Hey guys, it's Darwin here with my weekly Q&A to answer more of your questions. If you want to ask a question for next week's Q&A, you can either leave it in the comment box below or send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then next week I'll answer as many as I possibly can. All right, let's go ahead and get into this week's first question. Have you had to repair any of your down equipment, jackets, quilts, or sleeping bags? What do you do to repair a rip? I just got a small tear, less than a dime size, in my mountain hardware jacket, and I am in a slight panic mode because it's such an expensive jacket. So typically I will repair my down stuff and really anything that is nylon with duct tape. Or most recently I've actually been using Gorilla Tape. That stuff just seems to stick better, especially when it gets wet. But I have also used what's called tenacious tape. So actually, right there is a patch. I don't know if you can see that, but that is a piece of tenacious tape that I actually got to rip myself because I got my jacket snagged on a thorn bush when I was out doing a day hike, and I just repaired it. Typically, I keep Gorilla Tape wrapped around the top of one of my trekking poles just in case I get a rip. Now, personally, I always think it's cool to see someone's down jacket with a bunch of little pieces of tape on it. Snuggles has a down jacket that she's had for quite some time now that has different color patches all over it from different color duct tape. And I just think it gives the piece of gear more of a personality and really lets people know that it's been places. What was your worst injury on the trail and how did you handle it? What is the worst injury you've witnessed on the trail and how was it handled? I've never really been hardcore injured on the trail. Back in 2016 when I tried to bike pack the Arizona Trail, I did tear my meniscus in my right knee going down the Grand Canyon. So that was a pretty bad injury, but it wasn't too serious. It did take me off the trail. But I think that probably the biggest injury that I've had on the trail would be in 2016 whenever Snuggles and I were back on the AT. I actually broke my right pinky toe. I don't ever really talk about that, but I was coming down, I believe it was Stratton Mountain. It was super wet, it was super slick, and I stepped on a root and I slid and my toe box hit a rock and it broke my pinky toe. From there all the way to Katahdin, I actually every day had to wrap my pinky toe next to my other toe just to splint it. It never did heal on the trail because every day obviously I just keep putting impact on it and hurting it. So it healed about 2 weeks after we got finished with the Appalachian Trail. But I would say that is probably the most serious injury that I've ever had. As far as a serious injury that anyone else has ever had, I can't really think of anything. Snuggles one time slipped on some mud and smacked her head up against a tree and got this big old goose knot on her head. So I guess that was another big injury that I seen someone else get.
Hey Darwin, I'm Lauren from the DC area, and I would really appreciate your advice on negotiating that gray area between working a lot to really save up for your thru hike and actually getting to the trail when working a lot isn't allowing you to kind of adventure and travel and hike as much as you want because you're working and saving. So any advice you have regarding that would be really appreciated. If not, hi from DC.
That gray area is always something you kind of have to play with. Personally, when Snuggles and I were planning on going to hike the Appalachian Trail, I worked like 2 full-time jobs. I worked as a machinist, a tool and die maker, and I also ran a recording studio, and I was constantly working, constantly trying to save up money, but any time that I had any off time, whether it was after work, in the morning before going to work, on the weekends, I was outside on the trail in the woods trying to get as much experience and as much hiking as I possibly could in my life. So I think that you can always find time to get outside and explore. You don't have to travel to the other side of the country to get out on the trail and get out in the woods and explore. Most people live around something where you can get out, you can be on trail, you can be in the woods, be in Mother Nature, get fresh air, and get inspired to have a bigger adventure once you've saved up enough money and you're ready to go. When you are going stoveless, how do you make coffee in the morning? So I use the Starbucks Via Packs, so it's a micro ground coffee that typically you boil water, and you just put that in there and you stir it up. But what I do is I'll take my water bottle, like a smart water bottle, not necessarily this one, and I just take the packet, open it up, and I dump it in, I shake it up, and I have cold coffee in the morning. For me, it's a little bit easier just because I can make my coffee, put it in my bottle, and go ahead and pack up camp and hit the trail. And in that first mile or 2 miles, I can be drinking my coffee and getting my caffeine for the morning. Now, don't get me wrong, I love hot coffee, but there's just something to me about convenience on the trail that makes a world of difference.
Hey Darwin, Josiah and Jonah here, and we were wondering, as young men who like to go hiking, we noticed that you wear kind of like leggings with shorts, and we were wondering what you do about underwear when you go on long hikes. I know, what do you do? Thanks, love your videos.
So yeah, the tights that I typically wear are the Nike Pro Combat tights. Now they call them the Hyper Warm tights. I've been rocking these things for quite some time. I actually just had to get a new pair of them because they finally started to break down after thousands of miles of trail use. But as far as underwear goes, I have a pair of ex officio briefs, but I never wear them on the trail. Typically, I hike in running shorts, and running shorts have a liner on the inside of them, so they kind of have a pair of built-in underwear. So that was a really long way to explain it, but I guess the short answer would be I don't wear underwear on the trail. Would you recommend the PCT or the AT for a new hiker? So assuming that you are talking about doing a thru hike, now obviously I have not thru hiked the PCT yet. I have hiked a lot of trails in the West though, and completely hiking the entire Appalachian Trail, my vote would always be for the AT. And my opinion of that might change once I get out on the PCT, but the reason I think that the AT is a perfect first thru hike is because of the community that's around the trail. You know, there's always some sort of a hiker town or a hostel or resupply point or trail angels around the AT. So figuring it out while you're on the trail and having less room for error, the AT is easier to do that. Whenever you're out in the West and you're doing some of those trails, they just don't have as big of a trail community around them. So there's a little more error that can happen. You can get yourself in a little bit more trouble. You have to carry water for longer sections. You have to have longer resupplies. So for that reason, I think that the Appalachian Trail is the perfect first thru hike.
Hey Darwin, I just wanted to know if you are worried at all about ice and snow on the PCT during the Sierras, and what kind of gear you're bringing, especially for that, so like nice sacks and crampons or just micro spikes. So yeah, your thoughts on that. Thanks.
So no, I'm not really concerned about the snow and stuff in the Sierras. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be kind of a dry year for the Sierras. Last year was like a freak snow year in the Sierras, and apparently a lot of hikers really suffered from it. As far as what gear that I'm going to be taking with me in the Sierras, at Kennedy Meadows, Snuggles will be meeting me there, and if there's still a bunch of snow in the Sierras, I'll be picking up an ice axe and a pair of micro spikes. So I have the Cthulhu micro spikes, and I have a Camp Corsa ice axe. And those are pretty much the only two things that I'll be taking with me into the Sierras as far as avalanche or snow protection. But hopefully we'll have a really dry year and not get any snow at all, and I won't even have to take them with me. Glad to see you got a chance to make it back to the AT before you head to the PCT. Are you going to hike a segment of the Benton Makai after the Pinhoti since it connects to the AT? Just a mile or so from there leads to Springer Mountain. So Metro, the plan as of now is just to hike the whole Pinhoti Trail. As I've said in some past videos, the Pinhoti ends at the Benton Makai Trail, and it's about 70 miles west of Springer Mountain, which is the southern terminus of the AT. For some reason, if everything goes as planned and we get done with the trail early and we get to the Benton Makai Trail and we're not just ready to get off the trail, yes, we have considered hiking that extra 70 miles and going from the Pinhoti to the southern terminus of the AT. I think that that would be really cool, especially because it would just, for me, extend my Appalachian Trail hike to a longer trail. So I'm not going to commit to that, but it is in the thoughts the wheels are turning and we might be doing that. All right, guys, last question of the week, and this is a really long one, so bear with me. I'm getting a little disheartened with your information. Let me explain. We are transitioning adventures, moving from scuba and kayaking to hiking. So we are continually seeking advice from experienced hikers such as yourself. After watching many of your videos, we get disappointed to learn that you have decided to switch gear from a previously approved gear review. Case in point, the use of a small flashlight that you thought was amazing and could be used on the bill of your ball cap. Then you decided to switch to a small headlamp. No biggie. But we did buy the Blitzwolf power bank based on your previous personal experience and recommendation. Now we learn you are going with an Anker power bank. Grr! Of course, you have every prerogative to change your mind whenever you wish, but for novice adventurers, trying to gear up for the first time can be frustrating. So, I have said it in a ton of my previous videos, I am constantly playing with new gear. I am a gear junkie. So, the case of the flashlight to the headlamp. I decided to go with the flashlight, and I was dead set on that. And then about 4 months went by, and I found something else that I wanted to try out. After trying it out on the trail, I started liking that. So just because I like a new piece of gear doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with an old piece of gear, because I still use everything. I do a lot of different hiking in a lot of different places in the US on a lot of different trails, so I use a lot of different gear. I've said it a ton of times, there is no such thing as one right piece of gear. There's just not. And because of that reason, I am constantly playing with new gear and trying to figure out what works best for me at the moment. Now, as far as the Blitzwolf charger goes, I got myself a Blitzwolf charger and really liked it. And I had planned on using that for my PCT hike. When I was putting my pack setup together for the Arizona trail, I wanted to cut a little bit more weight out of my pack and found out that that Anker battery weighed a little bit less. So for that hike, I took the Anker battery, and to my surprise, I ended up liking the Anker battery just a little bit more than the Blitzwolf. But again, I do that a lot, and that just comes with trying out new things. I'm sorry that you're disheartened with the idea that I like to change different gear, but like you said, that is my prerogative. That's just what I do. And if you kind of watch the progression of my videos as I make them, I do it all the time. I use different packs, I use different quilts, I use different tents, I use different cook systems. Maybe I don't use a cook system. I'm constantly trying out new things in the field so I can get more information about hiking and backpacking. All right, guys, so I'm about a week away from starting my PCT Trail through hike. We're still here in Georgia, right next to Springer Mountain, out on the AT, getting stuff dialed down, but in about 6 days, I'll be headed to Alabama to meet up with Toasted Toad, and we'll be hiking 335 miles from Flag Mountain in Alabama all the way to the Benton Makai Trail right here in Georgia. If you want to leave a question for next week's Q&A, you can either leave it in the comment box below or send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then next week I'll answer as many as I possibly can. If you haven't had a chance yet and you want to follow Toasted Toad and I on our through hike of the PCT Trail, go over and check out my Instagram account. I've been posting a lot of new photos lately of some of the things that Snuggles and I have going on throughout the week, plus some pictures from some past hikes. Plus, I'll be posting a picture a day from the PCT Trail, so go check that out. If you found any value in this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, guys, thanks for watching.